Hey everyone, I'm Ryan at Marine Parts Source. Now, many of you watching may be very familiar with Marine Parts Source as a great place to purchase parts and accessories for your boat online. But what you may not realize is that we have our very own service facility right here in Port Huron, Michigan. This is a place where we conduct all sorts of special projects, things like bow thruster installations, anchor and windlass systems, overhauls on sanitation systems. We even install seakeepers, and we also are a Suzuki power center. So if you've got any special projects that you're looking to get done, we can certainly help you out. Recently, we had a customer who brought us their 17-foot Starcraft Super Fisherman. This was a Suzuki DF70 model, so it's 70 horsepower, and it dates around from 1999 to 2000 era. The issue was that when the customer would get the boat out on the water, the engine would surge when it got to certain RPM levels. And then when it would get past 2000 RPMs, the engine would start to die. What we identified is that it was overheating, and we needed to try and identify the cause of the overheating and then repair it. So using the Suzuki Digastnotics software, we plugged it into the engine and we're able to confirm that yes, overheating was an issue, and we were also seeing a misfire as well. So then it was time to start troubleshooting and figure out where the root cause of these problems was. And we like to start with the simple stuff first. That means just trying things like replacing the fuel filter and also checking the spark plugs. In order to replace common tune-up components like a spark plug or a fuel filter, you'll want to access the top of the engine, and that's easy to do. The cover is easily removed. There are a few clamps that are around the side of the motor. You'll simply unhook those and then the cover will come right off. So we started just by replacing the fuel filter, which is a very simple thing to do. The fuel filter's found on the side of the motor. It looks like this. There's one inlet and outlet, both on the same side of the filter. And so you just unclamp those fuel hoses from each of these, and then take the new filter, clamp the hoses back on, make sure they're secure, and you've got your new filter already installed. The next logical step was to replace the spark plugs. Suzuki highly recommends using NGK spark plugs, and we agree with that as well. NGK makes very high quality plugs. They last a long time and do a great job. So the plugs are located at the back of the motor. You'll see the spark plug wires running in and connecting to each one. You simply will pull each one of those wires out. Using a socket wrench, you can remove each spark plug. Then when you have the new plug, just make sure that you have it gapped correctly, and you can screw it back in. Again, make sure with a socket wrench that you have it secured tightly, and you're all set. Many times if you replace spark plugs or fuel filter, that can really help with any kind of overheating issue that you're having. But in this particular case, we were still having the issue. So at that time, we decided to turn our attention to the lower unit and the water pump. Often if the water's not being pumped through correctly, if there's some sort of obstruction or whatever, that can cause the engine to overheat. That requires removing the lower unit. There are several bolts that connect it to the upper unit, including one that's hidden by the anode. So you'll make sure and remove that one as well. Once we got the lower unit off, we were able to take a good look at the water pump, which is right in the center of the lower unit. Now on the top of the water pump housing, there's this rubber grommet, which connects to the pickup tube. This is going to be what feeds water into the engine and allows it to be cooled. And what we saw was this grommet was corroded and busted and was just not working properly at all. Water was feeding back down into the gear case and was not making it up to the engine. So we had to replace this component. So we took the housing off, and the first thing that we did is cleaned up the surface between the lower and upper housings of the water pump so that when we do reseal it, there's not going to be any opportunity for water to leak out. Now, we also put a new gasket on and then a new wear plate. When we looked at the old wear plate, we did observe that there were grooves in it, which means there are air pockets. This is another opportunity to cause overheating. We're then ready to replace the impeller. It's in the upper housing. We just popped the impeller out using a screwdriver, then took a new impeller and fit it into the housing. Now when you put the new impeller in, you don't want to have the impeller aiming in the wrong direction so that when it starts to turn, those blades might get bent or broken by trying to go in the opposite direction of where they're bent. So once the new impeller is in place, we can put the housing back on, screw it into place, and then we're ready to put the lower unit back onto the motor. So even with the water pump completely rebuilt, there was still one final issue that our team had to resolve in order to make sure that our customer didn't have any more overheating issues. There's this little black plastic cap that's used in the spot where the water is pumped out of the engine, and it was missing. Now without that cap there, it can't create the back pressure needed to get the water up into the power head and cool it. And that's probably what was causing all of the other issues that are happening in the engine. It's probably the source of how the water pump pickup tube grommet got corroded and busted. It's certainly a big part of why the customer was having issues with the engine surging when it would hit certain RPMs and then when it was dying. So by replacing this cap, a less than $8 item, we resolved a lot of problems for our customer. So don't forget, if you're in Michigan, and especially in the Port Huron area, you've got a boat with a Suzuki outboard motor on it that you need help with, we can help you out. Just give us a call at the number on the screen, and that goes for any type of special project that you're interested in pursuing with your boat. As always, if you're looking for parts and accessories for your boat, don't hesitate to reach out to our ABYC certified experts at Marine Parts Source at this number, and you can always find us online at marinepartssource.com.